For my student reflection story, I would like to talk about a personal experience that I had with a close friend of mine, where he was victimized by the police because of the color of his skin. This was an experience that during the time I did not recognize as an issue. I purely thought this was a coincidence and that the police were just doing their job. But when I look at it from a unique perspective and talk to my friends about it, we agreed that this was more of a racial issue than we originally thought. The year was 2012, I was in college, and I was visiting my friends and family back in our hometown in the GTA. My friends and I were in my parents' backyard, having a fire, enjoying the summer evening, when we decided to go across the street to a convenience store to grab a snack. It was late at night, and there was no traffic in sight, so we decided to jaywalk across the street instead of using the crosswalk. Suddenly, we were approached by sirens and flashing lights. My friends and I immediately stopped, and 2 police cars and 4 officers came out of their vehicles, yelling at us to stop and then bombarding us with questions. There were about 5 of us getting hounded by the police, when my friend Jordan and I were separated from the group by a 3rd police officer. Jordan and I looked at each other, super confused, a little scared, and surprised that out of the 5 of us, we were the ones to get separated. The officer asked if we knew why we were getting stopped. We said no. He then asked us to hold out our hands, so we did. We looked at our 3 friends, who were just getting a talking to by the other officers, and we were standing there with our hands up, being patted down like we committed a crime, all for jaywalking. Eventually, the officers told us that there had been a fight in the area and that someone had been stabbed, so they just wanted to make sure that we were not being part of that issue. We were let go without any mention of jaywalking and went on about our night. My group of friends kept saying how crazy it was that we got pulled over, and Jordan and I were just really confused as to why we got pulled over separately away from the rest of the group. After that day, I brushed the situation off. I didn't really think anything of it. That wasn't until the profound effects of the Black Lives Matter movement and the countless deaths caused by police brutality against people of color that I really started to reflect on that summer night in 2012. I asked Jordan how he felt about the situation and if he believed that in that moment he was being victimized. He assured me that yes, he was being victimized by a person in power, all because of the color of his skin, but that this was just the beginning of what Black people in this country face on a day-to-day basis. This country has a reputation for being very inclusive and diverse, and because of that reputation, a lot of Canadians believe that our country does not have a racial issue, which causes a lot of problem when it comes to combating racism in Canada. When you look at the history of our country, racism has been an issue since before the founding of Canada, when white citizens took part of the transatlantic slave trade, or when freed Africans founded a new life in Africaville in Nova Scotia, only to be removed from their homes and forced into society that didn't see those citizens as equal human beings. We see a staggering amount of Black and Indigenous people in the criminal justice system facing longer criminal punishments compared to their white counterparts. And with the popularity of social media, we are now witnessing how police are abusing their power against people of color and even causing death without any or little consequences. So, what do we do with this information? How does the story of my friend Jordan relate to the way people of color are being treated in our society? And how can I, as a white female, help combat racism to an almost non-existent state? The answer is education, communication, compassion, and understanding. Primarily, we need to educate ourselves about the history of racism in this country and get a deep-rooted understanding as to why racism is still existent. Educate ourselves on what it means to have white privilege and what we as white citizens can do with our privilege to help fight against racism. We need to then have a conversation with people of color, who may be our friends, co-workers, or family members, and gain perspective on what it is to be a Black citizen in society today. What has that summer night in 2012 taught me? At the time, I didn't recognize it as a racial issue. I simply thought there was someone out there committing a crime, and my friends and I just happened to be out there at the time the crime was committed. Of course, we had nothing to do with the unfortunate stabbing in the area, and yes, the police were doing their job, but what I didn't realize was that instead of asking all of us as a group to hold our hands out and all get patted down for weapons, instead of pulling one of my closest friends, a man who I've known since I was a teenager, and a person who stood beside me on my wedding day, was being victimized and targeted because of the color of his skin. And I can't help but wonder, if Jordan were not there with us that day, would we have been pulled over at all? From that moment, and after a long heart-to-heart conversation with Jordan about it, I realized how much harder he has to work to prove himself as a worthy and equal human being, and that I will never fully understand the hurdles and challenges that he has to overcome. But the best thing that I can do as a white female is listen, educate, and give compassion. With the education I have received and the understanding I now have, I can confidently say that I am a strong ally for the Black community. And with everything that I have learned, I can really educate others and have open conversations about racism and how white citizens can do better and be better when it comes to racism.